Well, this is my review for the Many Saints of Newark, the highly anticipated Sopranos prequel, and I got something to admit to all of you. I've never seen The Sopranos. But hey, that's going to make for an interesting perspective, but if you have seen The Sopranos, please leave a comment so we can have a great discussion all down below, because this is pretty much why I wanted more from this film. What's going on, buddy? Welcome back to a brand new movie review. Today we're discussing the Many Saints of Newark, the Sopranos prequel that is about the look at the formative years of New Jersey gangster Tony Soprano, and pretty much who made Tony. You get to explore a lot of his family, the people who you looked up to growing up, and just a lot of those different elements to it. Now, if you guys are new here and you guys love talking movies, well, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so we can keep talking movies over here on a daily basis, and as well as comment down below once again your guys' thoughts. Have you seen The Sopranos? Have you not? Are you excited for this movie? Let's discuss it all down there. And also, in honor of the Many Saints of Newark coming out this week, I do have a video up on my channel called the Top 5 Gangster Movies of All Time. Hope you guys go check that out because I had a lot of fun playing around within that world because I just love mobster movies. Like I mentioned at the top of this review, I've never seen The Sopranos once again, and I wanted a little bit more from this movie. I was quite excited for it. I really dug the trailer for it. I was interested to see a prequel for this to get me more excited to finally start The Sopranos, and if there's one thing that this movie did make me excited to see, it made me excited to finally watch The Sopranos, because honest to God, I know if you have watched The Sopranos, and from people I discussed with after the screening who have seen The Sopranos, it seems like they like this movie a lot more than I did. And they still had some of the same cons that I did, but overall some of the things that I narratively had issues with, which we'll talk about, they liked more because some of these characters they do see in the Sopranos series. So they understood a little bit more of the background history to everyone. As for me, it made me still want to watch The Sopranos to kind of learn more about this world, this family, and just in general kind of experience who Tony Soprano is, now seeing him at a younger age and kind of see where he goes in his adult life. Speaking of that, who did make Tony Soprano Tony Soprano? And I think that goes down to the performances in here, because I think almost every single person in here is really solid to excellent. And one of the big standouts in here is Alessandro Nivoli, who I've absolutely loved in the last few kind of films that I've seen him in. He was in this movie called Art of Self-Defense, and if you haven't seen yet, I think it's streaming on Hulu, but you should really check out. It is a very unique and different dark comedy, but he's excellent in there, and he was great in here as well as pretty much the mentor to Tony Soprano. He really much looked up to his uncle in this part of the world, and really much playing around in this, he's great. You really much feel the turmoil, the guilt that he really much feels in himself, and how he wants to be a saint, but he really isn't. Also giving a shout out to Leslie Odom Jr., who is great, and I actually wanted a little bit more from him inside this movie because he's in the movie and he has some good depth to him, and especially in the culture of this world and the time period, but his character Harold I feel like deserved a little bit more development. But honestly, giving a little bit more shout out to John Berthnall, Corey Stoll, Billy Magnuson, Michael Gandolfini, who plays, of course, teenage Tony Soprano, and he's great. Really much brings his father to life, even though, again, I haven't seen all the Sopranos. I've seen clips in here and there. He brings him to life in any other performance I'd seen. He really is a shining image of his father. Also, it was just great to see Ray Liotta back in a mobster film. He's great in here. The big standout of this entire film for me is Michelle De Rossi, which I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, which plays one of the mistresses to one of the characters in here, and I loved her. I thought she was phenomenal in this movie, and I wanted more of her. Her performance and really much her banter that goes back and forth with Nivoli is fantastic, and I think her development in here is one of the more sacred parts of any kind of mobster or gangster film. The women in these movies, just in any show, I feel like never get the front forward attention that they deserve because there's so much more background to them, and really there's just something about her background that I really much latched onto, and I appreciated her character and especially her performance, and I wish she was in the movie more. Sure, you keep hearing me say that word, more, because I wanted more from this movie. The performances were good, I dug the story overall, and I was entertained for the most part for the 2-hour runtime. But let's talk about why did I want more. And what I wanted more of is the fact that this did not feel like a movie. It felt like you took the best moments from a TV show and montaged it all together. There are many moments in here where I could not tell you anything about a character or an arc to them or even a development. And that even goes to characters that I assume are not even in The Sopranos because of certain things that happen to them throughout this film. And as I'm watching this, I'm like, there's no development to them. They're just a very atypical character that we've seen before in in a mobster film and you know exactly where they're gonna go, and then it happens. I understand that there are certain decisions that characters make in here that if you've seen The Sopranos, you kind of know the background of these characters a little bit more, so it's hard for me to kind of defer on that, but I have to, you know, as someone, again, as a movie, if I had never known what The Sopranos was and I just turned this on, I would have been expecting a little bit more from there. And, you know, we're going to defer if you have seen the show because, you know, when I look at other things like, say, Entourage, I loved the Entourage show and I really adored the movie because I like the show. And I'm sure if I go and watch The Sopranos, which I'm definitely making time for later this year, I'm probably going to reflect more on this movie and be like, okay, I appreciate it a little bit more. But as it's just a first-time watch, I expected more from the story, and just in general, how rushed it all felt. Again, it just felt like montaged moments happening with one another. It's like, oh, haphazard here, this event happened here, this event happened here, and I'm just trying to catch up and play catch-up the entire way through. And even speaking to someone who is a fan of The Sopranos, they also felt the same way. They looked at me and they're like, yeah, it did feel rushed. And I just sat there going, why was this not a miniseries? Why is this a movie? You know, I could have understood if this was a movie because it's based in one time period, showing maybe the perspective more from Michael Gandolfini's playing Tony Soprano, which that's another con. They marketed that this movie is more about him, but it's not from his perspective whatsoever. He's in the movie, but definitely he is not the main character in here, and I did expect a little bit more from that light, and I didn't really get that element that I wanted. And, you know, I just, watching this again, it's montaged, and I just sat there going, again, why is this not a miniseries? There are certain events and character developments that happen in here that I'm like, that was really rushed, or this was there, and I don't understand that. Again, other than it just making it feel rushed, the movie also just felt long and dragged out is because it's trying to tell you a story that needed more than just 2 hours to tell. If you tell this movie in a cohesive manner of over a couple of seasons, it would have worked wonders because then you would have gotten time with each character. It wouldn't have felt rushed. You would have had a breather in between each episode. In here, you get 2 hours of pretty much something that's crammed together that does feel like 3 seasons of something and just 3 seasons of development. It's on top of all the development that you know from The Sopranos, which made me again just want more from this film because I expected more from it because of the lead creator coming back to develop this. And it's awesome that he got his movie, and I'm sure again Sopranos fans will love it, but I expected a lot better than this. Many Saints of Newark is kind of a disappointment to me. I wanted a lot more from this. The performances are great. It's definitely an entertaining mobster movie, and it made me want to watch The Sopranos, so it did something good. But when it comes down to the overall story, it feels rushed in execution and just in general of its story beats. And it also feels dragged out and long because you don't get those breathers in between some of the most shocking moments and even explanations to those. I expected a lot more from this. I would still recommend it, especially if you like The Sopranos, but if you've never seen them yet, it's hard for me to recommend this one completely. I'm still positive on this one, but again, I wanted more. So with all that said, I'm going to give the Many Saints of Newark a C+. Thank you once again, guys, for clicking on this. You guys are seriously all the best. Can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts on this one. So make sure to leave a comment, hit that like and subscribe button, head on over to Sandwich One Films on how to see films early, and of course, it's a big thank you to you and a big thank you to my Patreon supporters, because without you, I wouldn't be able to do this. So of course, until next time, stay classy.